All right, in this breaking news, remember how we have said the president made the announcement that the chief of staff, John Kelly, would be out by the end of the year, and a possible replacement might be the vice president's chief of staff, Nick Ayers. Well, now apparently there is a decision from Nick Ayers. CNN's White House correspondent Caitlin Collins is joining us now. So, Caitlin, thumbs up or thumbs down from Nick Ayers?
Well, this is certainly a surprise to most people, even in the administration, who thought that Nick Ayers, who has served as the vice president, Mike Pence's chief of staff for over a year now, was going to take this job. He's been widely seen as the leading contender to replace John Kelly for at least 6 months now, but we are now being told by sources inside the White House that negotiations between the president and Nick Ayers fell apart over a timeline. The president wanted a 2-year commitment from Nick Ayers, but Nick Ayers told the president he could only commit to a few months, citing his young children and his desire to move back to his home state of Georgia at the end of the year. And the president was insistent. He wanted someone who was going to commit to being his chief of staff for the next 2 years. And now we are being told that Nick Ayers is not expected to become the chief of staff any longer. Of course, this raises the question of who is going to be the next chief of staff. And from what we've largely been told over the last several months, most of the negotiations about replacing John Kelly have focused on Nick Ayers. And it seemed to be a given almost inside this administration that he was going to take the job. But now they do not have anyone on a short list, and they're going to have to find someone in the next 3 weeks or so to take over for John Kelly, because President Trump told reporters yesterday that John Kelly is going to leave at the end of the year after a 16 or 17-month tenure into the job. So now it is really an open question of who it is that's going to be that's going to take over as chief of staff.
Quickly, Caitlin, barring emergency for a job like that, wouldn't the White House have lined up someone, a replacement for such an important job before making an announcement that a chief of staff is on his way out?
Well, absolutely. And it seemed to be that they had this plan in place for the president to announce John Kelly was leaving and for Nick Ayers to take this job. But they still had not agreed to a timeline of how long Nick Ayers would stay on the job when President Trump announced that John Kelly was going to be leaving yesterday. When he did that, when he was leaving the White House to go to the Army-Navy game. Now, even that was not part of the plan. John Kelly and the president had discussed his leaving on Friday after CNN reported that John Kelly was expected to leave in the coming days. And they said that they had agreed to having John Kelly tell the other staffers at a senior staff meeting on Monday that he would step down as chief of staff, and that is when they believed they would announce Nick Ayers would take over. But they could not come to an agreement on a timeline, and that seems to have led to Nick Ayers saying he's not going to take the job if it requires this 2-year commitment from President Trump. Now, while talking about that timeline, we should consider the fact that just 5 months ago, President Trump also asked John Kelly to stay on for 2 more years and to be the chief of staff until at least 2020. That was a timeline John Kelly had agreed to, and he told senior staff members at the White House about it during a meeting over the summer, but even that did not last. And John Kelly, of course, is now leaving just 5 months after that announcement. So right now, though, it's an open question of who's going to take over for that job.
Wow. All right, Caitlin Collins, thank you so much. So now the White House having 3 weeks, days and counting, in which to find a replacement for John Kelly.